the war is between China and America, period. But the question is basically, can they make China go on its knees? Trump understands the weaknesses of America. Nobody can debate that. The main card the Chinese are going to be playing is the European card. Let's say you impeach Trump. What's the alternative? It's done. The American empire is over.
Trump has mentioned some interesting statements about a third term. Are you seeing that Trump is America's last hope?
Trump actually won decisively. He won decisively because he is the hope of America. Sadly, it's not too big of a hope.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to i3 Pulse. Today, did Trump's arrogance just hand China the keys to the world? And is Europe secretly planning to backstab America? And what are the secret alliances of the future? Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Assalamu alaikum.
How's it going?
Good, alhamdulillah.
So, Sheikh, I want to start with the tariffs, right? Most people are saying that Trump's decision to suspend the tariffs show that it's an indirect admission of failure. While others are saying, no, this is a sign of his genius, art of the deal negotiation, four-dimensional chess underwater, make America great again. So which one is it?
Well, look, it's just, there's no such thing as totally dumb and totally genius, right? Like, there's good planning and there's bad planning. And I think the United States is a very mature, administrative organization, or has such one for planning for foreign policy and economic policy. So nobody can say it's stupid. Maybe a little bit of arrogance blinds people and make them overreach. So that's one. But what Trump is trying to do is trying to bring the manufacturing base into America. That's number one. Number two is trying to punish certain countries for not being loyal to the United States, or countries that basically are challenging American supremacy in the world, which is China, really, in that specific sense. I mean, the Russian also got lots of, tariffs and sanctions for a while now, since 2022 at least. But what is really the strategy here behind this whole trade arrangement? Now, many people, and even Trump himself, said that he's trying to pull Russia away from China with the Ukraine war. And maybe the Ukraine war basically did weaken Russia in specific ways, and maybe strengthened Russia in specific ways, because they are now battle hardened, and they understand their gaps very well. So they tweaked their strategy. But going to China,
was he forced to suspend the tariffs because people were getting nervous? The whole stock was just plummeting, right?
Yes, definitely. I think like he was very straightforward. Like, he didn't have an answer. Except that people are getting yippee, So yeah, I think many people are not comfortable in America, and I think, like, he understood from the beginning there will be a big shock for the economy, right? There'll be a big shock for the economy. Certain American companies might even go bankrupt, right? Because they were selling elsewhere, or they were buying from elsewhere, and now it's too expensive. Selling elsewhere because China now has retaliatory tariffs. So some of them will go bankrupt because of that. Some of them will find it expensive to get goods from outside because of the American tariffs. So lots of businesses will be in big trouble, and they have to adjust. So he called it the pivot. But this economic pivot basically could destroy the economy while it's doing it, right? So that's what some people are worried about. But again, the idea is to build things in America. Like, instead of buying cups from China, we'll buy cups from here. So in his mind, if we keep these tariffs long enough, American entrepreneurs will come in and say, well, we need cups because cups are too expensive. Now the making a cup inside America becomes, before the tariffs, it used to be too costly, yes, right? Now after the tariffs, let's say a cup is $2, just as an example. You put like 100% tariffs on China, that becomes $4. You see what I'm saying? So now, if the American could basically build a cup for $3.75, that cup will be sold in the market. You see what I'm saying? The problem is if the American consumer finds cups elsewhere than China. Look, it's very complicated. Very complicated. I don't think anybody can study all the world's supply chains in every single fashion. But they're taking a bet. They're taking a big bet. And look, let me tell you what I'm supportive. I am supportive of Trump. Okay.
Oh, fine. Okay. All right. Tell us.
I'm supportive of Trump economic policy.
Okay.
In one way.
Okay.
Okay. that he understands that basically not being able to build things in America makes America vulnerable.
Yes.
In case basically it goes in war with China, it cannot build things that it needs for a war. Okay, that's the bottom line. That's the bottom line.
Yes.
I heard what's his name? The guy, Zakaria guy from CNN.
Fareed
Fareed,
Zakaria.
yeah. So I just heard earlier today, Fareed Zakaria from CNN trying to say that, well, look, American has a great service economy, and Trump is mistaken for trying to bring manufacturing back. That's dumb. I think it's so stupid. Like, what do you want to just do the design and everything? Who's going to make it? Let's say you design the best plane. Who's going to build it for you? You see what I'm saying? I mean, in terms of plane, you can say, well, we have Boeing.
Yeah.
I get it. We have Boeing and so forth. But let's take, for example, the shipyards.
Yeah.
The shipyards in America cannot compete with the Chinese. Trump understands the weaknesses of America. Nobody can debate that. Being able to manufacture sensitive technology, basic technology, nationally vital technology for your country is a must. Otherwise, people can cut you up, and embargo you and sanction you, and you'll be on your knees. So what Trump is trying to do, I agree with, but is it doable? That's where I personally don't believe it's doable anymore. I think Putin said it very well, and we can put either the video or at least the article.
Ну, знаете, я хочу что сказать. Соединенные Штаты опоздали лет на 15. Они не смогут остановить развитие Китая.
He said it very well. I think America is only 15 years late. Like if Trump was elected 15 years ago and he did that then, I believe he definitely can break China. 15 years ago, maybe even I personally said 20, but Putin said 15. I'll take his word. He knows a little bit more than me in politics, So I'm going to take the KGB's word a little bit more. But you understand? I think it's too late. I think you can't break China like that. And to be honest, basically, even bringing back all manufacturing into America,
it can't happen just like that. Like it takes this.
It's going to take years.
Exactly.
It's going to take years.
There's a clip just speaking about Putin. This Putin clip, Ross Perot from 1992 campaign, where he was actually speaking about free trade, and then he was saying that all the American jobs are just going to move elsewhere, and we're just going to be in trouble. So certain people have been calling it for a long time. And the question I have for you, Sheikh, is. The Republicans, you have George Bush, you have these Democrats, they've been pushing all these free trade agreements for the past, 30 years, decades. But why is it that America moved that direction? Because America used to do tariffs way before.
Greed. Just literally one word, greed. All these big corporations were salivating for trillions of dollars. I think the Chinese Ministry of I forgot who from the Chinese government said that this was Alibaba's...
Jack Ma?
Jack Ma.
Yeah.
So Jack Ma basically just a couple of days ago said that the American corporations made trillions of dollars. He says it made more money than the 4 biggest national Chinese banks. And whether that's accurate or not, but basically definitely something along those lines. And the American corporations just sucked all that in. The American person didn't get. The American average person didn't benefit as much. Actually, they lost their jobs.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So the only beneficiary from making China into this global production machine was the American corporations in specific. Now they're paying a big price. But this is what happens with greed. I mean, the greed in capitalism is the real root cause of all what happened. Now there are people who are genuine people like Ross Perot and Patrick Buchanan, who are libertarians from that time in the 90s, who called all this out. But again, the greedy, powerful corporations told them to shut up, and nobody listened to them. So now America's paying the price.
So speaking of greed, now if Trump is trying to maneuver as a president, hit tariffs and really kind of make America more competitive and try to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. One thing I found out is that the tariffs are part of technically in the Constitution under congressional power. Right? It's technically not fully the power of the president, but they declaring war, the Congress lets the president get away with it. Now, these corporations with these tariffs are going to have to make all these adjustments, but they're very greedy. So is it possible that these corporations can utilize the Congress to now basically smash it against Trump to protect their interests?
No. Because these corporations understand where they are right now. Like there's a now within the political deep state, within the political circles,
Yeah.
there's many people that are not super popular right now, but they're rising stars of the American political scene who are behind Trump. Lots of them. You need to understand, lots of these hardcore now American nationalists who also own a good portion of the American corporations are behind Trump, which is why he was elected in the first place. But the question is basically, can they make China go on its knees? Because if they do, they win. Like the war is between China and America. Period. It's like Titan, the war, the battle of the Titans, really. And China is not even flinching. Now, what is the main reason why China feels super confident? I think China have built enough relationships across the world that they feel so confident they can not just resist, punish America for what it's doing. I think the Americans will leave this trade war a huge loser. And the main card the Chinese are going to be playing is the European card. So earlier today, a Spanish prime minister representing the EU was visiting China. So he met basically the Chinese president, and they both put their hands together and they said, we're going to push back on American, tariffs, and they decided to now lift tariffs against each other. So what this is going to do is going to create now. So what the Chinese are going to do, instead of selling Americans, is like, screw you, we're going to go sell the EU. The EU has tariffs against Trump put tariffs against let's say Mercedes-Benz and Beamers and so forth in Europe. It's like, screw you, we're going to sell China. They're going to sell each other. And they're both big economies. They're huge economies. They can easily replace the Americans. And I'm telling you, if this happens, the Americans are the largest, biggest loser. I think this is it's a moment in a century. I'm almost thinking, again, don't take this as an analysis, that if this was a deal that, or if this is something that Trump was pushed to be trapped in, this is a possibility. Again, it's just a guess. I'm not here, but I'm just saying it was a. Again, things don't come, like, what you need to understand, like these relationships, that's what I'm saying, these relationships between China and Europe, it wasn't born yesterday. Oh, let's react against Trump. Oh, you want to be my friend? No. These underlying relationships has been there for long years.
Yeah.
And Trump knew it, which is why Trump was trying to squeeze Europe and push it away from China than anything else. But the Europeans basically woke up. That's why basically, for example, what happened in France, they put that alt-right lady in jail.
Yeah, Marie Le Pen.
Marie Le Pen, right? They put her in jail like for a couple of years. Done. That's it, and she can't, or for 1 year, I think. But she can't
Run in 2028.
Run for any political position for the next 5 years.
Yeah,
4 to 5 years. So the Europeans now understand that Germany is trying to militarize right now, and when Germany militarizes, it will become a monster, a military monster. It's what it did in World War I. It's what it did in World War II. It will do it again. And right now, the German parliament already decided, they approved that this is now the way forward. They're going to spend billions and billions of dollars and euros into militarization, and definitely is going to risk Russia, right? But I think if Britain also is trying to say similar things. I think you have Britain, Germany, France, definitely Spain and Italy as part of Europe, and China collaborated together. Even the Canadians, and Canada has been like one of the most upfront and upbeat against America. So now the Canadians are saying, we're going to sell oil to China. We're not going to sell you oil. And we're going to sell oil to the EU. Imagine right now, everybody responds against the Americans by creating different, now rearranging their trade relationships, and then pushing the Americans out.
So now let's say that possibility, right? Let's say they wanted to do that. America has bases, like huge bases in Germany. They have bases all across Europe. They have the NATO, alliance. And Europe can build up their military-industrial complex, but it takes time, right? So, what levers does America have to pull to put Europe in a tough spot?
Well, it used Russia Russia is number one. That's why Russia is laughing at everybody right now. They're like, you guys put sanctions upon us. Well, now let the sanctions game go everywhere. Putin's just laughing because nothing changed with him. He already, like, his tariffs are already there. Actually, he's dealing with the Americans to lower stuff.
Yeah.
So the only one who's really befriending the Americans right now is the Russians, a little bit, And the Americans know he's not going to move away from China, and he's not thinking about moving out of China, away from China. But the biggest risk for the Russians is the Europeans. Look, Europe is a threat for three countries. Okay, the United States, Russia, and Britain. So when I say Europe, basically mainline, like the EU.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's historically has been a threat for Britain, and definitely historically has been a threat for Russia. And that's why those three were aligned in trying to weaken the European Union. The Britain by the Brexit, Russia by Ukraine, and America by Ukraine, right? And America right now basically by trying to pull out of NATO to a certain extent, or putting pressure, and the sanctions against Europe. So the only one that likes Europe right now is China. The China-European alliance is a serious one, is a really serious one. And there could be also a Chinese-Canadian alliance.
Are these? Would you say that there's some secret deals going on?
No, 100%. Then people ask me, is there secret deals? Like, all these deals are always done in secrets. Like, like, you know what I'm saying? People, it's conspiracy. Bro, everything gets done in secret. Nothing gets done out, like, imagine the Canadians or the British or the like right now the Spanish. After secret deals, things come up to the open, not the other way around. You don't start with like open and then go secret. I mean, there might be some exceptions, but right now the Spanish prime ministers went into an official visit to China. President Macron went to China also a few years ago, like after 22. Actually, he went to China. So the European-Chinese relationship, wasn't fully secretive, but definitely lots of it has been secretive for a while now, and the Americans knew. Why do you think basically they punished Europe with basically a war in Ukraine that hurt Europe more than it hurt Russia? The Ukraine war that was created by the CIA and orchestrated by the Biden administration, because the CIA started the orchestration a couple decades before, right? We already had an episode about that to weaken Europe more than Russia, and even thinking about basically the Americans threatened the EU to only buy American oil, American energy. I mean, everybody knows that it's the CIA that blew up that Nord Stream. You know what I'm saying? Well, it's not going to be the Russians, right?
Well, they need it, yeah.
It's not going to be the German, right? It's not going to be the Chinese, right? But who's it going to be? It was the CIA, and there could be collaboration, or at least the Russians are okay with it. Why? Because now they're going to sell their. They're gonna weaken Europe in general. So at least maybe the Russians knew. That's why they didn't retaliate by exposing this to CIA, even though they did mention, if I'm not mistaken, like between the lines, it's the CIA.
But in terms of intelligence and defense, how can? Because America and Europe used to collaborate closely. That's what people think, right?
Yes.
And now they're working with China. So are they also going to be collaborating with China on intelligence? Which countries are going to do that? Are there strong nations from an intelligence perspective, or are they just at the mercy of the U.S.? Let's
step back. People need to understand. This is what always people who are new to the geopolitical arena think. When a person befriends a person, he leaves a person. No. The Europeans are working with the Americans and working with the Chinese and working with the Russians even. Everybody works with everybody. But in certain specific cases, you cooperate. In specific cases, you don't. Do you see what I'm saying? The Europeans cannot, for the long term, continue with the Chinese. The Europeans wants to become a big player in the world, be equal to the Americans, and then switch alliances, because the Western ideological paradigm, which is liberal democracy, will be at a threat. So there will come a time where China will divorce, Europe will divorce China and go full in with the Americans. But see, the Americans want The Americans does not want an equal relationship with Europe. They want a subservient Europe, and Europe says, no, screw you. We either basically you treat us like an equal, or we're gonna cooperate with China to get to reach our national interests. Don't forget, the Americans have been hitting Europe for a long time. The first time that the Americans hit Europe was in the war against Yugoslavia, early 90s. So mid 90s, sorry, mid to late 90s, and then Kosovo, right? Like all these basically was, the Americans could have actually almost instigated those, and if it didn't, in certain cases, it was very happy to just put fuel to the fire. So Europe is a threat to the Americans because they are a great power. So the Americans' objective is to weaken them, just like Russia and China. You see what I'm saying? But in certain cases, it's like playing Risk. People played Risk when one player becomes very strong, everybody gangs upon that player, and when that player gets smacked and one of them gets stronger, the alliances shift, and they gang upon the other person.
Trying to keep a balance of power. So
that's it.
You have some autonomy.
That's it. It's survival. Literally, it's a game of empires. And we haven't had Game of Empires for a while, just because the United States was really like a unilaterally dominating the global arena. Now you have China. It's literally almost an equal opponent, and you have the other great powers that basically are now competing a little bit more because they have choice. Before China, everybody had to work with America. When China said, okay, now we can align with China against America. You see what I'm saying? And that's what's happening right now. This is what people need to understand. I can tell you, the Trump administration's trade reorg in the world would work if the Europeans would cooperate, and would lose if the Europeans don't. And the Chinese and the Europeans are now on the same side. Is it for just negotiations until the Europeans get an advantage over the United States and they pull away? Or is it going to be strategic to really weaken America and maybe even make the dollar fall down? I don't know.
Exciting times, huh?
Oh, it's crazy times. This is beyond excitement.
And speaking about excitement, we know recently who visited China, right? Ishowspeed visited China, and he was going on all these little drone cars and also their electric cars that jump as well and spin. We'll put some of the videos here, and he really did a huge. Those videos were getting millions of likes on Instagram. And hundreds of millions of views. So what do you think about that?
Oh, this was intentional. This is basically, I can tell you this is part of the Chinese foreign policies, projecting soft power. You saw the videos basically where the Chinese are now they're attacking the Americans basically. They're showing them as if they're fat.
Oh, the factory line basically.
You guys want the factory lines, take the factory lines.
They're working, an American working. You don't want that,
it's
American.
Crazy.
We'll do it for you.
Not really, because see, the Chinese are going to automate all that.
Yeah.
And some of it gets exported to Vietnam and so forth. China has super high technology. That's why that's what they're showing with speed. That look at our cities.
It's crazy.
It's it's more beautiful than what, LA or New York. It's by multiple times.
That's why when I saw that, to be honest, I'm like, I don't think America can catch up. Even if they bring the stuff back, even just on the electric cars, China and Tesla, Chinese Tesla cars.
Let me tell you some numbers.
Insane.
Let me tell you some numbers that I heard in China myself, because I visited China, I think 2009, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. The number of engineers that graduate every single year in China is equal to all the American graduates of all fields.
Oh, wow.
And that's 2009. Add 17 years. How many engineers do they have? There's no way America can compete. No way. 20 years of the population of all the graduates in America in every field. That's what happened in the last 20 years. There's no way on earth America can. There's no way. So that's why it's the Americans. They know they are in a very. Nobody's saying that. The reason Trump's coming hard, saying, "Look, we have to take the pain," is because there is no easy solution.
Wow. Yeah.
The question is basically what Trump is doing is going to create a huge slump in the American economy. It's going to create lots of economic pain. The question, can the American people handle it? The Chinese can, because the Chinese are used to basically being, less affluent and But that's how their regime works. That's how their
And the
country
guy,
works.
they have full control
It's
too.
a full control, right? Like there's no, you die or you're hungry. Which one you want to be?
Yeah.
That's in China. In America, people are going to go on the streets. So there's a possibility, maybe 2 years from now, especially when Trump might lose the majority in the Congress and the Senate after 2 years and 2 years in elections, but people are going to go down the streets in Washington D.C. and impeach him. But see, the questions to the American people is like, okay, let's say you impeach Trump. What's the alternative?
Yeah.
I would say it'll be more leftist cooperation, negotiations.
I think they're done though.
Oh,
Aren't they?
it's done. The American empire is over.
So are you seeing that Trump is America's last hope?
I think it's definitely, which is why many people are behind him. Like you need to understand, Trump actually won decisively.
Yeah.
And the reason he won decisively because he is the hope of America. Sadly, it's not too big of a hope.
So in terms of hope, right, Trump has mentioned some interesting statements about a third term, potential third term, right? And we know in the past, FDR, in the past he ran, because there's no term limits before until 1951 after World War II. But FDR ran America like a CEO. He was there for a while. And ever since after World War II, the president, executive branch did not wield power completely as much as Trump. You can see now he's wielding more power. The executive branch is wielding more power.
Yeah.
Do you see, and even with Doge, they're firing their opponents and other people. So do you see a potential where Trump can bend the rules and find a way that he can become get a third term and really get his
if he does well, if he can, like I'm telling you, he might not even basically stay for a couple of years. He might be impeached. But if he does well, yes. If America wins, because see, Trump came on what campaign? He says, I'm going to do what no other president can do. And he says it all the time.
Yeah.
He's like, and he did basically something that nobody else can do because what he did needs lots of guts. And he's a risk taker. He's an adventurous person. And he did. So if he does win, he definitely, I think he can get a third term, definitely.
And there's ways around the Constitution and all that stuff. There's ways
well, aside from that, these are definitely
these are just
Congress,
paper.
Yeah, these are things that can be changed. I think he will become a national hero.
Yeah,
he'll become the second George Washington. So that's why Trump has two choices: either basically get impeached, okay, or become a George Washington.
this is crazy.
I'm not saying these are the only two options. I'm just saying these are good probabilities.
So you have Xi Jinping, who became chairman for life, and then if Trump succeeds very well, he could become president for life, and it's almost becoming like a elected king position.
But we said it's this age of empires again.
Yeah,
this is like the world came back to the age of empires that we haven't seen for a while, since World War II, and most of us basically, like for you to be in World War II, you have to be over, let's say you need to be at least 10 years old, 15 years old. So you're born in 1930. You need to be 95. To really remember, how the world worked then.
Yeah.
So not many people are in 95 plus. So we're going back to something we've never, like the Gen X and have never ever.
The baby boomers.
The baby boomers, even the baby boomers.
Yeah. It's after,
because they were born exactly at the war, right? So it's even the baby boomers most of them didn't see this stuff.
So speaking about that, right? After World War, and I guess we can wrap up on this. When after World War II, we know that the Middle East, the U.S. took more control on the Middle East, and then France and England were kind of just like pushed out of the Middle East. Is there a potential for the Middle East being part of this battleground? Like, can we see countries now aligning more to China, China moving a little bit into the Middle East as America becomes weaker on the global stage and they become stronger?
Oh, definitely, without doubt. Actually, the Chinese president is already basically opening relationship with Saudi Arabia, with many other Middle Eastern countries. It used to be there, but very, very, lightly. Mostly the American focus seems to basically been Africa and Latin America, with some Middle Eastern countries, and maybe focus on energy, maybe resources. But now it's going to open more markets to the Chinese. The Chinese are going to say, look, we're going to sell everything that we sell the Americans to. I mean, the Gulf states are very rich, so these are good replacement. Like Europe and the Gulf states are the good replacement for the American goods and services. You see what I'm saying? So lots of changes geopolitically, economically is going to happen in the next few years, and the whole world is going to continue to be unstable for a while.
And what could that mean for the Middle East? like for these potential changes? Like, could it mean that the Middle East could become stronger? Could it mean that the Middle East could become more further chaos? What could that mean for the Middle East?
Well, when there's choice, there's more opportunity, right? So there's we would hope. I mean, I would hope basically that the Middle East could become stronger with negotiations now with China. You can demand more when you have alternatives if they can play both sides very well. Especially also you have Europe. There's Russia, Europe. I mean, the Middle East had lots of choices. It's just the Americans were dominant. If the American power basically recedes a little bit, and the Middle East can have like a little bit more guts to now negotiate and so forth, it will become better. But to be honest, I don't foresee it very quickly because the geopolitical situation there.
Okay, Sheikh, Jazakumullah khairan. Appreciate it.
God bless you.
A lot of insight on how everything is connected. And guys, I didn't know all these things were connected. Just this tariff war, how big of an implication it has on the planet. And so like, subscribe, comment, share. These analysis and these conversations we're having with Sheikh, these are conversations that need to be spread to everyone, inshallah ta'ala. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of I3 Pulse. Assalamu alaikum.